Feisty Fridays. I'm back. I took another week because there's a version of leadership that gets a lot of popularity everywhere right now, and I want to talk about it. It's loud, it's certain, it's decisive to the point of being absolute. And if we're honest, it looks like strength. It really does. But here's the uncomfortable truth. And partly I took another week's break because I've been wrestling with this truth myself. If I'm honest, it looks like strength. But a lot of what you and I, are calling strong leadership right now, it's just control. It's just control in a better outfit. And I've had to reckon with the fact that this is also a part of what my leadership journey has been marked by. I've done it because as a novice professional, it was what I understood as the way to imply credibility when I knew I didn't have it. And I've been talking in my newsletter for the last few weeks about the illusion of strength. The only reason I put any pen to paper on anything is because it's my struggle. And this is not the obvious kind of struggle. It's not explosive, it's not aggressive leadership that we all recognize. That stuff's easier to see. I'm talking about the subtle version, the one that still gets promoted, the one that still gets praised, the leader who in the room always seems to have the answer, who fills every silence, who speaks in absolutes about complex problems. And the reason they do this is because that version of themselves feels safe to all of us in uncertain environments. But here's the thing. If we say it and we don't mean it, it comes at a cost as leaders. Because when you feel like you have always got to know something, to know what's right, what's true, it leads you to stop learning. When a leader feels like they always have to be certain, that very same leader tends to stop listening to other leaders, listening to their followers, listening to others in general. And when your identity as a leader is tied to being the one with the answers, you will, because I have, start protecting the identity of certainty instead of serving the people who you are meant to lead. I think that's the shift that most of us miss. It's the shift that I missed because control feels like leadership. Because when things are unstable and uncertain and riddled with conflict, all we want is a sense of control. And I really think that control is usually a nervous system response because it's the amygdala hijacked. It's not leadership strategy. It's harnessing fear and trying to make sense of it. I've stood in rooms and I've performed certainty when I actually didn't feel it. I have continued to do this. I certainly know what it's like to fill space because silence feels vulnerable. It feels risky. And I've doubled down on my decision making instead of getting curious about whether I was wrong because I was scared I was wrong, but I just wanted to push through. And it wasn't because I was actually maliciously trying to mislead someone. It was because, I don't know, somewhere along the way, I learned that not knowing something could look like weakness to others. And that's a huge trap. It's a trap I have fallen into, and I think it's a trap that most of us fall into. Because the more you perform strength, the further you get away from actually being strong. So, what is real strength in leadership? Well, it's not a busy calendar. It's not about knowing everything. It's a very different experience. For me, it looks like holding the room without needing to dominate it. And if you've been in a room with me, you know that dominating a room is something I'm really good at. It's also about asking better questions instead of rushing to answers. Even when I feel like I might have the answer or a answer, it's just letting the complexity in the room exist without forcing any clarity prematurely. For me, it means being steady enough internally that I don't need to control everything externally. Yeah, it's relegating that ego. And that kind of leadership doesn't always get immediate positive feedback or applause. In fact, the meetings that I sit in silence in are often the ones that don't get positive attention at all. But what I believe it's building is something more powerful. It's building trust, it's establishing safety, and it's consciously increasing my ability to think in a real way. It's actually a space I've been moving deeper into lately. And I've been in meetings recently where I've been like, compelling myself to keep my mouth shut. And, in my newsletter, I don't have to do that, but I'm trying to do the work behind the scenes here and then relate and share it with you so that you can see what I'm seeing over and over again in myself. And that is that most of my leadership breakdowns are not skill based. I've got skills, mad skills. It's actually the distance between my skills and my own identity. That is where my vulnerability is. I have learned to protect myself as a leader, but I have not learned to lead the same way. And so I'm really being intentional. I'm starting to write and build around that with more intentionality. I'm really good at sharing my journey and story with you, but I want to make sure that it's actually taking effect and moving me from performing leadership in all cases to leading from a place that's stable, that's human, and that's real. Because I want to be known for being a stable, human, and real leader. And I'm getting ready to share lots more about that. But I need a little bit more time. So if you take one thing from this entry from Feisty Fridays, let it be this. Please, please, please work with me to pay attention to where you feel the need to appear strong instead of actually feeling grounded, being grounded. Because one of those builds your image as a leader and the other builds leadership. And we don't want to be image builders. We want to be building our leadership, our intrinsic, genuine, authentic human leadership. Because quite frankly, my friends, those two things are not the same thing. So have a wonderful, wonderful week. Spend time with people that you love and make sure that you have the opportunity when you're hanging out with those people to see your genuine self reflected back in the way they feel about how you make them feel. That's really, I think, the work that we need to focus on. So happy Feisty Friday. We'll see you next week.